So, good morning. Good morning, everyone. Do you find seats? There's two more left there. I think there's one there. And at the very back. Yes, you may sit there. Okay, so very much welcome, everyone, to this seminar called Faith, Hope and Condoms, when a secular Sweden meets a religious world. Tro, hopp och kondomer när sekulära Sverige möter en religiös omvärld in Swedish. The seminar will be held in English, though. The seminar is organized by Läkarmissionen, PMU, the Pentecostal Relief and Development Agency, and RFSU, that is the Swedish Association for Sexuality Education. Maria Bard, standing next to me from PMU, and myself, Maria Karto, from Läkarmissionen. We are going to lead you through this session, starting with a short introduction, followed by also a short interview, and then we'll have a panel discussion.
And sexual and reproductive health and rights. You can hear me very well, right? Yeah, felt like I was screaming to you. Okay, well, sexual and reproductive health and rights are central development issues where Sweden has taken a global lead. Having access to contraceptives is crucial for women and also for children in the long run. And in many countries where Sweden has a strong commitment, religion plays a crucial role. 80% of the world's population confess to a religion, so religious actors are very influential for good and for bad in societies. People come to the mosque or to the church to be changed. So this gives religious actors a possibility to influence norms, attitudes, and people's ways of seeing themselves. And there's a journalist called Nicholas Wade, and he said that religion are powerful creators of social facts. And it's not merely facts they create, but a binding emotional knowledge that these facts are sacred truths. So when religious actors take a stand for women's rights and the right to decide for their own body, opportunities for positive development for SRHR are increased significantly. Therefore, it's important for faith actors and secular actors to understand how to collaborate and find each other in the most efficient way. We're seeing, looking at the world today, how the discussion on SRHR is becoming much, much more polarized, in line with what we're seeing here in the political landscape as well. And it's crucial that we find each other, that actors do bridge gaps that are possibly there. And that's what we want to discuss here today. How can we, different actors, find each other so that we can be more effective in the work for SRHR? And we will start with the interview with our good Dr. Denise Mukwege. So welcome up to the stage.
Denise Mukwege, we're so happy to have you here. You are a globally known human rights defender in regards to women's reproductive health, and you're also the founder of Panzi Hospital in Bukavu, DRC, Democratic Republic of Congo. Both PMU and Läkarmissionen are proud partners to Panzi Hospital. I would like to ask you about the family planning work that you do in DRC. As I said, you are the founder and the leader of Panzi Hospital in Bukavu. And at the hospital, you have a family planning unit that I visited a couple of times. I know it's very well functioning. I know that even if the context is very, very poor and challenging, you do very good work. What would you say are the key factors to its success?
Thank you. I want to thank you and thank PMU and Lekar Mission to invite me at this inspiring place. Really, when it's my third time to be here, and I can say that always when I'm here, I'm just leaving this place with new ideas. And thank you for all of us to participate to this debate. Planning family in a society as a Congolese society is a very sensitive question. Because in the society where people, the only one assurance that they have is their children. When you talk about planning family, you need really to understand you are talking about what problem. But when we can see that planning family is natural, is a natural sense. And when you are talking about it, you need really to know what is the problem in the community. And the factors that I was facing is, the first was, in the society where the obstetrical care is very poor, where the neonatology care is very poor. To talk about planning family is very hard because a woman can get 5 children and lose them. So when you ask a woman to get just only 3 or 4 children, she has an impression that, and if something happens and I lose all of them, what will happen for me? Because my only insurance is my children. And so I think that to improve the obstetrical care and neonatology care is really one thing was very important.
Yes.
I was in France to learn obstetric, and I spent 6 years in a maternity. I have never seen a woman lose a baby during their delivery. And I think that this is a factor who can bring a big difference between here and Africa. When you are not sure that you get a baby and will keep him, so you want to get as much as possible. So if you lose, you will still get few, 2 or 3. And there, one thing that we did was to show women that to be pregnant is not an illness. If they want to get children, they can plan. And if they have a good plan, they can just get the children they want to get, and is to give them obstetrical care of a good quality. The second sense is to talk with the community. And most of the time, I can see in my country, women are meeting in the church, talking about their faith, but or talking about their sexuality. But men are not doing it. They have impressions that they know everything. But when you talk with women, you can understand that women know that men are ignorant, but they are not able to talk to men what they should do. And most of the time when they come to me is to say, can you call my husband and explain him? I will let you talk with him, but they give me what I have to talk to the husband, because they are not able to talk to the husband. This is the second thing.
So including good health and including men are important factors.
And the third is to talk with the faith-based actors, because they have a big influence on the population. So if you don't really talk with them and bring them to understand, you can't succeed.
So regarding the actors and also the topic of today, DRC is a very religious country. And sometimes religion is used as an argument against family planning. And sometimes also the Bible is used by religious actors to claim that family planning is something bad. And Panzi Hospital is owned by the Pentecostal Church in Congo, CEPAC. And you're not only a doctor, you're also a pastor in this church. So indeed, you are a religious actor acting in a religious context, and you make it work. Can you explain how?
Yeah, I think that to get this two hearts is giving me really a possibility to talk with people. Because I don't know, as obstetrician and gynecologist, the physiology of women, the planning family is natural. Women can't get children anytime. And when they got a child, we know that in my country, when you can go in the traditional place, you can see that each child is coming after 3 years. And this is not a hazard, because just children are breastfeeding. And this is helping. So it's natural. And this, when I'm talking with pastors about planning family, I'm just showing them that our body is planned to don't get children each 9 months. The second thing is I would like to see all these faith-based actors to show me in the Bible where is written that planning family is bad.
And can they show you?
They can't.
No.
Because, let me tell you, there is one thing. When you are talking with faith-based actors, most of the time they're telling you, or women are telling you, oh, you know, God said you have to get many children and fool the world. But Eve and Adam, they got only 2.
That is a very good point, yes.
And when Abel died, the 2 boys were able to work for themselves, so they were adult. And then they decide to get another child to replace Abel who died. So this is a planning.
Yeah. Yeah.
So how can you tell me that you have just to fool and no one, if you can get as much as children, there will be just maybe one avenue, but you can't fool the world. Thank you.
Thank you. So, Dr. Mukwege, we could stay here talking the whole day, I'm sure, but we will let the rest of the panel in. So please enter the stage.
Thank you.
All right. We have a very, very prominent and experienced panel today. I will start with introducing Hans Linde, President of RFSU, the Swedish Association for Sexuality Education. And you were also a member of the Swedish Parliament for many, many years for the Left Party. Standing next to him, we have Karin Jämtin. You are the Secretary General.
Director General.
Director General, I'm very sorry about that. Director General of SIDA, which has a very long Swedish English name, Swedish International Development Cooperation Agency. And you also have a very long career within politics. You were a member of you were working for the Social Democratic Party, and you were also the Minister of International Development Cooperation in 2003 to 2006. Yeah. Very much welcome. And then we have Josephine Sundqvist. You are the regional representative of the Swedish Church in Eastern Africa. You are also a researcher at Uppsala University, and you hold a PhD in sociology of religion. So you see, it will be a very, very interesting discussion, and I leave to Maria Bard, who will moderate it.
Super excited to start this discussion right away. A big applause once more for the panel, so we get started.
Thank you.
Right, I'm going to start with you, Josephine.
Yes.
Yes, as a researcher, could you give us a very brief picture of the religious landscape that we're living in regards to SRHR?
Yes, I mean, there are lots of changes that we see globally when it comes to the religious landscape. And generally, we could say that there is a shift in the power center from the global north to the global south. And many still perceive that Europe is the center for global Christianity, but it's not the case. If you look at, for example, globally, which is the biggest Catholic country, do you know? Brazil, with 134 million Catholics. And then comes Mexico, and the third biggest Catholic country in the world is actually the Philippines. If you go on to the Lutheran Church globally, Protestant Church, the biggest one, do you know where it is? Ethiopia. Second biggest Lutheran church in the world, Tanzania. If we move on to Pentecostalism globally, biggest one, same as Catholic, Brazil, with 84 million Pentecostals. Second biggest Pentecostal, do you know? China, with 72 million Pentecostals. Third biggest Pentecostal country, Nigeria. If we look at Muslim, global Islam, the biggest Muslim country, do you know? Indonesia. Second one, India. Third, Pakistan. So it's not the case that Europe is the global center for Christianity and that the Middle East is the global center for Islam. We have moved away from that, but because we are lacking knowledge about religion and development, we don't have an updated worldview. So that is important to say. Another trend, quickly, is that charismatic churches are growing enormously fast. And we see two types of forms of Pentecostalism globally. One is a more progressive form of Pentecostalism, the one that I would say you are representing, Dennis Mukwege. But we also see reactionary forms of Pentecostalism that are trying to control women's bodies. So we have good and bad examples in each of these world religions. And another thing is also that we see overlapping religious identity. You are born Catholic. On a Sunday, you visit a Pentecostal congregation. And during your holiday, you sacrifice to your ancestors' spirits. So religious identities are not always as fixed as we think.
And then going into connecting to SRHR, what would you say is the connection here on a global scale?
Yes, because of this shifting power center, it also affects, generally what is happening with sexual and reproductive health and rights. Because in the countries I have mentioned, maternal mortality is high, and the access to family planning is low, and the access to comprehensive sexuality education is low. And therefore, a lot of religious actors are now discovering that there is a huge challenge, and they are stepping up. And that is what we see in Church of Sweden's international work. We are seeing a lot of ecumenical alliances working now on comprehensive sexuality education, working on making sexual and reproductive health and rights accessible to youth. And therefore, we have to really now think clearly, how can we work together with these global influential actors?
And Karin,
yes.
you are leading SIDA right now. Yes.
Mm.
And Sweden and SIDA has taken a global lead in these challenge times. If I'm thinking about the global the gag rule, you've started the initiative She Decides, and today I think the last global strategy is being decided on in the
By
government.
the government, yes.
By the government, where the strategy on working with SRHR is going to be included. So go online afterwards, not now, afterwards, and look it up. But being a secular actor coming from one of the most secular countries in the world, which we know Sweden is, how do you perceive this, being in discussions and in dialogue with countries where religion play a great faith? Do you find any challenges? And if so, how do you navigate that?
There are challenges, of course, but I would just like to start by stressing that Sweden has for many, many years worked with sexual and reproductive health and rights as a big priority. More than 50% of development cooperation that we at SIDA work with in the area of health is channeled to sexual and reproductive health and rights in different ways. So in all of our partner countries, nearly all of our partner countries, we work in this area. But many of our partners, like you, like the organizers here, work in this field. We always try to find the reason for us working with this is, of course, the right of every woman to decide on her own account when and if to have a child, and the right to not die when being pregnant, and the right for a child to be born in as healthy a state as possible. So it's a very simple reason. It's a matter of human rights. For us, it's important to find the right actor at the right place. And as Dr. Mukwege pointed out, faith-based organizations and faith-based structures are often very, very influential at local level. There is currently a trend on a global level to, or attack rather, on the work on sexual and reproductive health and rights based on decisions by the president in the United States. But at local level, one can often find partners to work with. I would like to take an example. I told Hans before here, from last week. I visited Afghanistan, a completely different context, and of course the majority of the people there being Muslims. Yeah. I met with Mary Stopes, an American organization working there at local level with maternity health. We were told not to talk about family planning, but to talk about birth phasing. And I asked, how do you work with the men to encourage them to take part in this birth phasing? Oh, but of course, we go to the mosques on Fridays, and a couple of weeks ago, we had 2,000 condoms, and they were gone by the wind rapidly. So they find the sort of tools of working in the really, really also conservative parts in this country, and that is the way we try to find our partners in different ways.
And Hans, what is your experience from that? Because you, at FSU, you're working in several countries, and you're the leading agent in Sweden when it comes to SRHR. And how do you navigate? And then commenting also on what Karin said, what experience might you have of faith in that sense?
First of all, I would like to thank PMU and Läkarmissionen for inviting us to this great seminar today. I must say I'm really honored to be on the stage together with these great persons standing next to me. Let me start by saying we talk here about the secular Sweden and the religious world. But when RFSU was founded in 1933, Sweden was a really religious, conservative country. We were a country where it was illegal to inform about contraceptives. We were a country where one woman died on average every week because of an unsafe, illegal abortion. We were a country where same-sex relations were punished with penal labor. That was the setting when we started our organization. And for us, it's never been a question, should we or should we not work together with religious leaders or faith-based organizations? Because for us, already in the beginning, we asked ourselves, how can we work together with these actors? Because we felt that there was not really an alternative. So we started in Sweden, from our experience, to work to try to identify different religious leaders, faith-based organizations that we could work together with. And already in the beginning, we saw that there were openings. It was possible to have dialogue, build bridges, have a cooperation. Because also in Sweden at that time, pastors, religious leaders, faith-based organizations. Sorry, I hope you have heard me so far.
Yeah, we have. I mean, now just go.
No, we can hear better.
I apologize for that. They, of course, also saw the same challenges that we do. They saw the families that have lost their mother due to an illegal abortion. They met and saw the consequences of the absence of contraceptives in Sweden, and they saw a need to act. And actually, for quite a long time in RFSU, although we are a secular organization, we had priests on our national board, because we saw that we needed to have this understanding and this knowledge within our organization if we wanted to address these issues. And we look at the world today, it's the same with our partners. It's not possible if you want to address issues about sexual and reproductive health and rights. You can't address these issues in a successful way if we turn a blind eye to the fact that religious actors are important actors in all societies, in all settings, and that most people in this world have a strong faith, not only in the opposition, but also among all the brave men and women around the world actually working for our issues. We can see among many of our partners, most of them are secular organizations, not all of them, but most of them are, but their members, their co-workers, many of them are devoted Christians, Muslims, Buddhists, Jews. So it's not really possible if you want to work with these issues to turn a blind eye to religion.
It's a driver for change. And Dr. Mukwege, looking at that for ongoing, being personal now, you as a pastor as well and as a doctor, what does faith mean to you?
Yeah, I want to say that I believe in God. And I know that from the knowledge that I have from my faith, that women and men are equal and all are created on the image of God. And this is very important for me when I know that you are all equal and you are created on the image of God. So the way to treat women in my work, in my daily work, is really to treat them as equal to men, to me, and especially to just know that we need to love others as we love ourselves. And this comes from my faith. And this really is making a big difference in what I'm doing daily. I know that it can be a discussion to love another as yourself. We can talk about empathy, compassion, and so on. But for me, it's more than only empathy and compassion.
So it's a drive, it's larger, because quite often we think of religion as something instrumental, in the sense that we have pastors and churches and mosques are there and we can get the information out to the society, because they usually would be, at the farthest end, but there might be other values when it comes to, having more values in a broader sense. And I want to reach out to you, now, Josephine, based on that. Your research, doctorate research, thesis is dissertation. Sorry, this is not my field, so I got it all wrong, but you say it right, Josephine. But it's called Beyond an Instrumental Approach. So looking a little bit on how one can harvest maybe these positive in faith in general, and draw that into the context of development. What would you say you saw, and what did you learn?
I would say not only from my research, because I'm also here in the capacity of regional representative of Church of Sweden's international work. And what we have seen is that we have not before taken full use of what religion brings to the table. We have previously focused so much on the infrastructure. Our partners have hospitals in place, schools in place, buildings, networks. That is great. But if you look at their role in society, the legitimacy they have, it's enormous. And it's for good and bad. I mean, religious leaders and faith leaders are powerful. And if we get them on board, if we can stand together in effective partnerships, they will have a positive influence on behavior, value transformation, but it can also work in the other way around. And what we have done in Church of Sweden's international work, when it comes to sort of implementing a lot of the findings I have seen, is to call religious leaders moral duty bearers. Because we are a frame organization to CEDA, and we often talk about duty bearers as the legal ones, the local and the national governments. But we have said our key duty bearers are actually religious leaders. They are in so many cases more powerful than the local governments. And therefore we have addressed them now in our work, in our frameworks, as the moral duty bearers. And that has given us a very effective framework for advocacy. But also I would say that when we move beyond an instrumental approach, we also can touch about the values and go deeper. And in development cooperation, we have talked so much about low-hanging fruits. If we want to change attitude and behavior, take those who are the low-hanging fruits, easy to change. But those apples have now been picked by so many NGOs. And now the rest of the apples in the tree, they are not as easy to pick, because they might be more conservative, or they might have values that are more far from what we stand for in the Swedish feminist foreign policy. And then we have to start to engage with those who can reach the apples at the top of the tree. That is what I have seen.
Karin, what are your thoughts on that? Listening to those reflections, how I mean, SIDA, like we said, now has developed several global strategies, and you also have, and that they will now be implemented. Based on that, maybe in that process, what are your thoughts on what Josephine said?
Yeah. We will work in different ways to operationalize these global strategies. They are in many areas. They are decided by government on what areas we are to work in. So today the government is adopting the strategy on sustainable social development that we can and emphasizing that we should work in the area of sexual and reproductive health and rights. But also in other areas it's important. We have a strategy on sustainable economic development, one on human rights and democracy, etc. And in many of these, the discussion we have here is extremely relevant. For us, it's important to remember that when this supporting, let's say, local committees or councils in there, not politically elected councils, because they of course consist of politicians, but if you have other kinds of local structures, that the most influential parts of this local community should be part, and they are often the religious leaders. No matter what, if it's a Pentecostal church or if it's a Muslim society or if it's any kind of other religion. These leaders should be included when talking about how to develop the communities. That can be in the field of energy access or access to health services or whatever. So for us, it's a matter of always remembering to ask for and see to it that the faith-based organizations or persons representing these organizations are part of influential structures moving communities forward.
And Hans, you were one of the implementing actors in Sweden on this area. And what, if you look on what you would see areas that would be good to develop, to be able to go further? Maybe with support of SIDA or from other kind of approaches. There are global initiatives that are being initiated working on development and faith. UN Women and
FPA.
UNFPA, have taken lead on that. Where do you see that there's potential to actually develop methods or something, work further?
Well, I think there's enormous potential to increase and improve this work, because I think and I see today that we are many different actors in Sweden and on the multilateral level that works on sexual reproductive health and rights, and we do it more or less in the same contexts, but we sit in our different organizations trying to invent our different strategies, trying to invent the wheel over and over again. So I think it's so important that we have more and more dialogue between different kind of actors to learn from each other. I think this seminar is such a good example how we can come together, different organizations, with a different background, but share our different experiences. I think that's a very concrete way we can move forward, actually, to strengthen this work.
And Dr. Mukwege, you were like Josephine in the discussion with Maria. You discussed the work that you're doing in DRC, and you've seen also a lot of other collaborations with actors in the field who might be of different opinions. But you're also a global advocate, traveling the world, being part of different international forums. You just came back from Iraq, visiting the Yazid women, for example, and talked to the religious leaders. So you have seen collaboration between actors who might be very different and still coming together for a common purpose. What have you seen being the key aspects of making that work?
I think that the very important thing is really to respect the opinion of others and listen to them, and just don't come as someone who is doing a proselytism, to say, I know, I'm right, and you have to do things in the way that I think that is a good way. I think that to respect people and give them the choice, just to come with your opinion, with fact, even if you have evidence based on what you are talking about, but accept that others can get their own opinion. It can be just an opinion, but you have to respect it. And just this freedom of them to make choice. And I think that the freedom of thought and expression should be one of the principal things that when you are working with different people, actors, to respect this. I can just give an example. Where I'm working, Catholics are majority, but women who are attending our program, we have half who are coming from our church, but another half is coming from the Catholic Church. I'm talking with them, and when you talk with leaders, it's clear that they don't want to talk about planning family. But when I'm talking about it, I'm just talking on my perspective, and I let them to accept or to don't accept. But I can see that slowly, many women who are coming in our program, they don't belong to our church. They just coming because they accept our way to think as Christian. They are also Christian, but our way to know that planning family is not really, can be seen as a sinful. And the second thing, I come just from Iraq. And I was in contact with Yazidi women here in Europe. We talk a lot about what happened to them, to be slaves in the 21st century. I think that this is a terrible thing, to get a price and to be shown that your value is $100 or $200. It's a terrible thing. And I think that not only to be slaves, but to be dehumanized in this way. Can you imagine if their community can say, we don't accept you in the community? I think that you can use all the therapies that you want, but this can be terrible things for all these women. And I met with a spiritual leader of Yazidi in Iraq. And this, his name is Baba Sheikh. And he said, you know, when Yazidi women come back from the slavery, we took a decision as spiritual leaders to say they are human, and we have to respect them as human. So they accept them in the community again. And I know some of them who are in a small organization that we have, who they will be married with other Yazidi. And can you imagine this in the Muslim context as Iraq? They are not Muslims, but the context is when this can happen is just went through the honor crime. And this is what we can experience. If leaders can take really a good decision, sometime it can help a lot to change things in the society. But we need to be open and just give our opinion and let them to decide themselves.
And going into methods, Josephine, what is your experience? You're, like you said, working for the Church of Sweden and as a researcher, so you have these both aspects. When looking ahead, where do you see a need for maybe further research or maybe further development for us as Swedish NGOs to take this, and SIDA, to take this one step further?
I mean, what I see is that we have a number of best practices, a number of methodologies that we have started to try out. One of them is, for example, Our Whole Lives, theological reflection on sexuality, where you sit with pastors and bishops and you ask, why is sexuality so shameful? Why is it such a stigma to address this topic? And then you start with Bible studies and talks, and you also pray together. And after a number of days, we see that suddenly bishops and priests do not feel ashamed anymore to talk about sex openly with their youth, in confirmation, in their congregations, in their everyday life. And some bishops have even given me feedback that now I can talk with my wife at breakfast about sex.
At breakfast, they start.
But I would also say that what we need is more, I would actually come back to what we heard from Karin and from Hans. We need innovative partnerships. And that is also something we have started to try out. So recently we got funding from the Swedish Institute to work together with Kalmar County Museum with developing new methodologies to address in our work against female genital mutilation, with using culture, heritage, and religion. And we have also worked a lot with the Swedish embassy, with the Tanzanian Dad campaigns, addressing masculinity by using progressive faith male leaders as role models for youth in the nation. And we took the Swedish Dad campaign, and we sort of used that methodology, and it worked really, really well. But of course, we also need more research. And I will say to Karin, I think SIDA need to invest more money, resources, time, more policy work, to also give more toolboxes to not only faith-based actors, but primarily maybe to all your frame organizations that are also secular. So you can give guidance in this important work.
Yeah, what do you think of that? Should there be a theologians employed at SIDA, maybe?
Maybe. But I don't know.
No. But what do you think of the discussion itself?
But maybe there should be to be a bit serious, yes. I don't know, but it's an area certainly that we should take forward. Maybe this is the wrong place, but I would like to thank this Church of Sweden for inviting me just before Midsummer to discuss exactly this.
Yes.
It's an area and a theme very much on our focus currently, and we will see how to take this forward a little bit, because I think that SIDA and Swedish development cooperation is good at trying to create innovative partnerships in different ways in many areas. We are supporting many faith-based organizations, but then when taking into the sort of prism or aspect, when analyzing in a broader sense, we will have to do a little bit better. And maybe, yeah, I'll take on the ideas here that you have taken out, and we'll see where it leads to.
We're about to close this beautiful discussion, but maybe Dr. Mukwege, I wanted to ask my final question to you. We want to look ahead. We want to be part of creating a society where everyone's life is respected, where everyone's life is heard. And we want to bridge the gaps that we're seeing in this society right now. We're seeing, we're here at Almedalen, the place where democracy is debated and discussed. And maybe we're in the forefront of an election that will be extremely crucial in Sweden today. And SRHR is an important issue. And we need to bridge these gaps. So what would your advice be to us that are here, coming from different aspects, on how to actually work together?
Yeah, I think that to hear for all these special panelists, I'm so happy to see that things really are moving forward. And this is a good thing, because to talk about sex, even in my country, it's a taboo. And when we keep it as a taboo, so we open the door for people to look their own knowledge where they can get it. And most of the time, it's not really based on evidence. So they are just taking the bad way to know things and to act. So I think that to open this door and talk about sex, we don't need to be ashamed to talking about who we are, because sex is part of us. And I think that to don't just mix sex with sin is very important as religious. And I can just tell you, for example, we are giving a training to girls at the City of Joy. It's one of our programs. And in this program, we have a planning family. Even if they are girls, and many people come to me and say, Doctor, why you are teaching these women to know their body? It's very dangerous, because you are teaching them to use, to misuse the sex. I say, oh, you are not right. Because my experience is that when they know clear how their body is working, when they know how it's functioning, they have more control on their body than just to let them in ignorance. And then I think that, as I said, contraception must be a choice. And we can't, even God give us the choice to do bad or good. And I think that the really things that we have to do is to work on the common ground. And we have many things who are positive, and we can work together on these things to find solutions. And this, for me, is really find our common humanity. And we have this common humanity. And if we can work just to take our common humanity as a principal thing, I think that we can do our work better.
And with those words, we send you out into Almedalen and out into Sweden and change this world for the better. Thank you for coming.
Thank you. Thank you.